Long before Earth's name was whispered among the stars, the galaxy already lived under a shadow. It was not the shadow of night or storm. It was the shadow of a fleet so vast that it blotted out suns. Whenever its ships appeared, entire worlds fell silent. The fleet was more than just an army. It was fear made into steel and fire. Their black ships carried weapons that could split a planet's crust. Their soldiers were trained not to feel mercy, not even to understand it. When they arrived, people had two choices: kneel or die. Most chose to kneel. Those who resisted vanished in flames. On one barren moon, there were carvings left by a civilization that no longer existed. The carvings showed towers, gardens, children running through bright streets. All of it was gone in a single day, erased by the fleet's wrath. The moon itself had cracked, broken into pieces that still drifted in silence, a warning to anyone who thought of rising against the conquerors. Civilizations learned quickly. When the fleet's horns echoed across the stars, rulers bent their knees. They handed over treasures, armies, even their own sons and daughters as tribute. To refuse was to invite destruction. And so the galaxy lived, not in peace, but in chains. The fleet's admirals were proud. They believed they were invincible, that no race could stand against them. They drank from cups made of stolen gold, boasting of the next conquest. They spoke of the galaxy as if it were already theirs, as if no resistance could ever exist. But in the silence between stars, rumors began to spread. Whispers, faint at first, grew louder with each passing season. Travelers spoke of a distant blue planet, small and unimportant in the spiral arms of the galaxy. These people were strange, they said, too stubborn, too wild. These humans had no empire, no ancient legacy, yet they refused to break. They fought wars among themselves that could have ended them, but instead, they rebuilt stronger. The fleet's commanders heard the rumors and laughed. A small, primitive world? It was nothing compared to the empires they had already crushed. They saw Earth as a stepping stone, another easy conquest that would remind the galaxy who ruled the stars. But among the enslaved races, the whispers carried something dangerous. Hope. Maybe this world is different, they murmured in hidden corners. Maybe these humans will not bow. They dreamed of a day when the fleet would finally be challenged. The admirals grew restless. Hope was poison, and they would not allow it to spread. They gathered their ships, black as night, and prepared to march toward Earth. Their leaders promised another swift victory. The soldiers sharpened their blades and charged their weapons, expecting another weak world to conquer. As the fleet moved, the galaxy grew quiet. Stations dimmed their lights. Traders disappeared from the routes. Entire planets held their breath. The same thought filled every mind: Earth would fall. The fleet always won. And yet, something was different this time. In hidden colonies, enslaved mothers told their children stories of humans. They spoke of warriors who never gave up, of people who stood even when the sky burned above them. On broken worlds, miners whispered to one another, "If the fleet falls, it will fall to them." Even those who had never seen Earth clung to the idea. Still, the truth was simple: the fleet was moving, and no one had ever stopped them before. But Earth was not like other worlds. This history was written in blood and fire. Humans had known hunger, war, and despair, yet they had never surrendered to it. Their cities had fallen and risen again. Their nations had torn each other apart, only to rebuild stronger. Unlike others, humanity's greatest weapon was not technology, but their refusal to kneel. And while the galaxy whispered in fear, Earth prepared in silence. Leaders met in hidden rooms. Soldiers drilled day and night. Factories worked without rest, forging weapons that gleamed like lightning. The humans did not beg for mercy. They did not plan to bow. They looked to the stars and waited. The fleet believed it was hunting prey. What they did not know was that this time, the prey was waiting with teeth bared. The galaxy could not see it yet, but something new was coming. A storm was building on that small blue world, a storm fiercer than anything the fleet had ever faced. And when it broke, the meaning of fear itself would change. For the first time in centuries, it was not the galaxy that trembled. It was the fleet. They just did not know it yet. The message arrived like thunder across the stars. It was short, cruel, and clear. Kneel or be destroyed. That was the way the fleet always began. No diplomacy, no mercy, just a demand and a promise of fire. Entire civilizations had surrendered after hearing those words. Even the bravest kings had laid down their crowns. The fleet had spoken, and no one dared to argue. But this time the words reached Earth. The humans gathered in great halls, inside war rooms hidden deep beneath the ground. Generals studied the message on glowing screens. Leaders sat in silence, their faces lit by the red warning lights. Some clenched their fists, some stayed quiet, but none of them bowed their heads. For a long moment, Earth itself seemed to hold its breath. The planet knew what those words meant. Submission would mean chains. Resistance would mean war. And this was not just any war. It was a war against the most feared fleet in the galaxy. On the streets of cities, ordinary people heard whispers of the coming threat. Some felt fear. Others felt anger. Soldiers volunteered in massive numbers, their eyes burning with determination. Factories began working day and night, producing weapons, ships, and armor. Humanity was answering the message, but not in the way the fleet expected. In the fleet's stronghold, alien admirals waited for Earth's reply. They were certain it would be the same as every other planet. Surrender, gifts of tribute, the lowering of flags. They laughed in their halls of black stone, mocking the small world they were about to crush. But Earth's reply was different. The message sent back to the fleet contained no pleas, no excuses, and no apologies. It was only a single line, carried through encrypted waves across the stars. If you come, you will regret it. The admirals froze when they read it. Soldiers stared at the screen in disbelief. No one had spoken to the fleet that way in centuries. Civilizations had begged for their lives, sworn loyalty, or wept in surrender, but never had one dared to threaten them back. Anger spread among the commanders. Some slammed their fists against steel tables. Others shouted that Earth must be burned slowly, as a lesson to the galaxy. They saw the message not as courage, but as insolence. But among the slaves who served in the fleet's ships, a different reaction bloomed. They smiled secretly. They whispered to each other in hidden corners. For the first time in generations, someone had answered the fleet with defiance. Someone had said no. Meanwhile, on Earth, preparations grew intense. The human armies were not the largest in the galaxy. Their ships were not as many as the fleet's endless armada. But they carried something stronger than numbers: the will to survive. Young recruits trained in harsh conditions, their voices echoing as they shouted oaths of loyalty. Engineers built machines that could pierce through shields. Scientists worked without sleep, searching for ways to turn every resource into a weapon. Humanity was uniting not for conquest but for survival. The leaders of Earth knew what was coming. They knew the skies would soon fill with fire. Yet when they spoke to their people, they did not speak of fear. They spoke of strength. They told humanity that this fight was not just for one nation, not even for one planet. It was for the right to exist free under the stars. Across oceans and continents, people stood together. Farmers gave food. Workers gave labor. Families gave their sons and daughters. The challenge had been thrown, and humanity had accepted it. In the quiet hours of the night, soldiers looked at the stars and imagined the fleet drawing closer. They knew death could come, yet they did not flinch. Some even smiled. For them, it was not only a fight for Earth, it was a fight to show the galaxy that humans would never kneel. The fleet, still far away, began to move faster. Their black ships cut through space like blades. They carried arrogance, fury, and a hunger for blood. The admirals promised their soldiers that this campaign would be remembered for centuries, that Earth would serve as a warning to all. But the truth was already different. Earth was not another weak world waiting for mercy. Earth had already refused. The challenge was clear: one fleet against one planet. The galaxy watched in silence. Some prayed for Earth to survive. Others shook their heads, certain humanity would be destroyed. Yet, in hidden hearts, Hope flickered brighter than ever before. The fleet thought they had delivered a threat. But in answering back, humanity had done something no one else had dared. They had thrown the challenge back into the face of fear itself. And now, for the first time, the fleet would not simply be feared. It would be tested. The stars above grew cold and silent. War was coming, and the galaxy trembled, waiting to see if the humans' words were truth, or the last mistake they would ever make. The fleet had never waited long for an answer. Once their demand was sent, they moved quickly, striking before fear could fade. And so, while Earth was still preparing, the dark ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. They came in silence, drifting like shadows across the stars. Their hulls were blacker than night, their weapons glowing with deadly light. To the enslaved crews inside, the sight of Earth's sun ahead looked like the start of another easy victory. The scouts were the first to arrive. Small ships, fast and sharp, entered the orbit of the blue planet. From high above, they watched the oceans glitter and the green lands stretch below. To them, Earth looked fragile, soft, unprotected. The alien commanders laughed. "This is the world that dared to defy us?" they said. "This will be nothing more than ash." But then something happened that none of them expected. As the alien scouts circled the Earth, their sensors picked up movement. From hidden bases below the surface, metal shapes rose into the sky. Dozens of ships, sleek and armed, cut through the atmosphere and entered space. Their engines burned bright, their weapons hummed with deadly power. The humans had come. The alien scouts had expected fear. They had expected desperate cries, begging for mercy. But what they found instead were human warships flying straight at them, ready to fight. The first clash was sudden. A single human ship, smaller than the alien scout, locked its weapons and fired. A spear of light shot forward, piercing the scout's hull. The alien ship exploded in silence, breaking apart into glowing fragments. The galaxy had waited centuries to see such a sight. The fleet bleeding. The alien commander on the flagship roared in fury. More scouts rushed to attack, surrounding the human ships. But the humans did not retreat. They moved in strange patterns, weaving and striking with speed the fleet had never seen before. One alien scout turned to escape, but two human ships flanked it from both sides, blasting it apart in seconds. Another scout tried to shield itself with heavy armor, but human weapons tore through it like paper. In less than an hour, half of the alien scouts were gone. For the first time, the fleet hesitated. Inside the human ships, the soldiers did not feel fear. They felt fire in their blood. Many of them had never fought aliens before, yet their voices shook the air as they shouted, "For Earth!" Each shot they fired carried not just power, but defiance. On Earth's surface, millions watched the battle from screens. When the first alien ship exploded, cheers rose from cities, towns, and villages. For the first time, humanity saw proof they could fight back. They were not helpless. They could stand against the monsters of the galaxy. The alien admirals, however, were filled with rage. They had never lost scouts before. To them, this was not just resistance, it was insult. They ordered more ships to move forward, preparing to crush the humans with overwhelming force. But something gnawed at them. The humans were not supposed to have this power. They were young, barely known to the galaxy. And yet, their weapons cut through alien shields, their tactics broke alien formations. It was as if humanity had been preparing for this moment long before the fleet had arrived. The truth was simple. Humans had been preparing all along. They had studied the stars, built hidden bases on the Moon and Mars, and created weapons designed for survival. Unlike other worlds, Earth had expected darkness to come one day, and now that it was here, they were ready. Still, the battle in orbit was only the beginning. The fleet had thousands of ships. Earth's forces were brave, but they were small compared to the endless armada moving through the void. The scouts' destruction was nothing more than a spark against a storm. And yet, that spark mattered. For the first time, the fleet had been touched. For the first time, their ships had fallen. Across the galaxy, enslaved peoples whispered the news to one another. The humans drew blood. It was not victory yet, But it was hope. The alien admirals swore revenge. They ordered the full fleet to prepare for war. No mercy, no survivors. They wanted Earth to burn so brightly that the rest of the galaxy would never dare to resist again. But down on Earth, the humans were not trembling. They had seen the enemy bleed. They had tasted the first step of defiance. And when the message spread across their world, it was simple, carried on every voice, every heart. Let them come. The first contact had been made, and the storm was only beginning. The fleet believed they had seen humanity's strength. They were wrong. The most dangerous army the galaxy would ever face had not even fully risen yet. The war for Earth had begun. The scouts' destruction should have been a warning, but the fleet was too proud to listen. Their admirals believed the humans had only surprised them with a few lucky shots. They thought Earth had shown all its strength. They thought the fight was already decided. They were wrong. From the black void of space, the main fleet arrived. Thousands of alien warships poured into the solar system like a storm. Their engines glowed with power. Their weapons pointed toward Earth. Each ship was large enough to crush cities, and together they looked unstoppable. The galaxy had seen this armada before. Every time it ended the same: fire, ash, and surrender. But Earth was not like other worlds. Hidden in silence for years, humans had been building something the galaxy had never seen. On the moon, in deep craters, huge hangars opened. Doors of steel slid apart, and warships rose like predators into the sky. On Mars, underground factories rumbled, sending fleets of armored cruisers into orbit. Even in the dark belts of asteroids, human outposts released ships that had been waiting for this moment. The aliens expected a small resistance. What they saw was an army. The human fleet appeared piece by piece, and soon the sky was filled with them. Sleek ships with sharp angles, heavy carriers carrying entire battalions, and experimental vessels designed for one purpose: war. Engines lit up space with burning light. Thousands of ships stood ready, their weapons locked on the enemy. The alien soldiers stared in shock. For the first time, they felt something they had never felt before: doubt. On the flagship of the alien armada, the High Admiral shouted orders, his voice filled with anger. Destroy them all. Show this planet what it means to defy us. And the battle began. Alien warships moved forward, firing beams that cut through the dark. Explosions ripped through the void, lighting up the stars. But humanity did not break. Their ships surged forward in tight formations, striking with precision. A group of alien cruisers surrounded a single human vessel, confident of its destruction. But the humans unleashed hidden weapons, missiles that split apart and struck from every angle. The cruisers were torn apart, one by one, until only wreckage floated in silence. On the moon, giant defense cannons activated, firing blasts that crossed half of space. Alien frigates tried to push closer, but each one was torn into pieces before it could reach the surface. Mars too joined the fight, launching swarms of drones that flew like a cloud of fire, overwhelming enemy shields. The galaxy had never seen humans fight together like this. Nations that once argued stood side by side. Soldiers who once wore different flags now fought under one. Humanity was united not by conquest but by survival. The alien fleet pressed harder. Their weapons burned through human shields, destroying several ships in fiery blasts. Yet every time a human vessel fell, two more appeared. Earth had prepared too well, too long. The admirals who once laughed now clenched their jaws. Victory was not coming easily. Inside human ships, soldiers fought with silent determination. They were not just defending Earth. They were fighting for their families, for their children, for the right to live free under the stars. Every pull of the trigger, every launch of a missile carried the weight of their entire world. The battle stretched on, neither side giving way. Space itself became a sea of fire, filled with wrecks of burning ships. The alien armada was massive, but so was humanity's will. On distant worlds across the galaxy, enslaved races watched secretly through stolen signals. When they saw human ships rising from every corner of their system, when they saw Earth's dangerous army face the unbeatable fleet, they whispered words they never dared speak before: Maybe the fleet can fall. The alien admirals, furious, tried to convince themselves this was only temporary. They told their soldiers that Earth's resistance was meaningless, that the humans would soon break. But deep inside, they felt the truth pressing against their pride. The truth was this: the humans were not weak. The humans were not afraid. The humans had built an army that could challenge the most feared power in the galaxy. And the fleet, for the first time in centuries, realized it was not chasing prey. It was facing a predator. The dangerous army of Earth had risen, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The battle raged on. For hours, the sky above Earth was filled with fire. Alien warships clashed against human fleets, and explosions lit the darkness like storms of light. From the ground, people could look up and see flashes across the night sky, like stars dying and being born again. The alien armada had the advantage of numbers. Their fleet was vast, stretching across space like a wall of steel. Every time a human ship fell, they cheered. Every time a human defense shattered, they pressed harder. For them, this was how every battle had always gone. They would keep attacking until the enemy broke. But the humans were not breaking. Every destroyed ship became a story of sacrifice, not defeat. The survivors fought with more fury, their voices echoing through the comms. For Earth, for freedom. The more the aliens pushed, the harder the humans resisted. Alien admirals grew frustrated. They had expected fear, panic, retreat. Instead, they faced discipline, precision, and something stronger than both: unity. Humanity fought as if every person on the planet had a hand on the trigger. And then, slowly, the tide began to change. It started with a single strike. A group of human destroyers broke through the alien line, weaving through fire and chaos. They aimed not at the smaller ships but at one of the massive alien carriers. With perfect timing, they released a storm of missiles. The carrier's shields cracked, and in a roar of light, the giant vessel exploded. The shock spread through the alien fleet. Carriers were the heart of their power, the beasts that released endless waves of fighters. And one had just been torn apart by humans. The aliens rushed to close the gap, but humans pushed harder. From the asteroid belt, hidden warships emerged, their weapons cutting into the enemy from behind. The fleet that once looked unstoppable was suddenly surrounded. On Earth's surface, millions watched as reports filled their screens. When the news came, the humans destroyed an alien carrier. Cheers erupted. In cities, in villages, in hidden bunkers, people screamed with hope. They had not only survived, they had struck back. The alien admirals roared in anger. They ordered all ships forward, desperate to crush the humans before morale shifted too far. But their soldiers were no longer confident. For the first time in centuries, they faced an enemy who did not fear them. An enemy who fought harder with every loss. Inside a human battleship, Commander Reyes stood over the map of the battlefield. His voice was steady as he gave orders. Hold the line. Push where they are weak. Make them bleed. Around him, young officers worked with burning determination. They knew history was being written in that moment. The turning point came with a storm of fire. Another human squadron targeted the second alien carrier. They dived through enemy lines, shields breaking, hulls cracking. Several ships were lost, but the survivors did not stop. With their final missiles, they hit the carrier's core. The explosion shook space itself. The second beast was gone. Silence filled the alien command deck. 2 carriers destroyed. Their fleet had never suffered such losses. Admirals who once mocked Earth now stared at the burning wreckage, their pride turning to fear. And still, the humans pressed forward. Every tactic the aliens used, the humans adapted. Every trap they set, the humans broke. It was as if Earth had studied their playbook for years. In truth, it was something deeper. Humans were unpredictable, relentless, and willing to fight until the last breath. The galaxy watched through stolen signals, unable to look away. On distant planets, slaves whispered, "The fleet is not invincible. The humans are showing us." The battle was not over, but its heart had changed. No longer was Earth defending itself in desperation. Now it was the fleet that struggled to hold ground. The hunters were becoming the hunted. On the flagship of the alien admiral, silence hung heavy. His claws dug into the metal table. His eyes burned with disbelief. He had promised his soldiers an easy victory. He had promised the galaxy that Earth would be crushed. But now his fleet was bleeding, and his soldiers were trembling. The humans had turned the battlefield into something the aliens had never faced before. A war of will. And in that war, the humans were stronger. The turning point had come. The galaxy would never forget the moment when the fleet, feared for centuries, felt the first taste of doubt. And the doubt was growing. The battlefield was a graveyard of fire and steel. Wrecked ships drifted in silence, their twisted hulls glowing red from explosions. For hours, Earth and the fleet had clashed, and now the galaxy's most feared armada was bleeding. But the fleet was not finished yet. The alien admirals, furious and desperate, ordered their ships to regroup. Thousands of vessels tightened their formation, creating a wall of black iron that stretched across the stars. The plan was simple: crush the humans with overwhelming numbers, no matter the cost. Their soldiers obeyed, though their eyes carried doubt. They had never lost before. They had never seen their mighty carriers destroyed. And now, facing humans who refused to kneel, many wondered if this war would end differently. On the other side, Earth's army gathered too. Commanders aboard human flagships spoke calmly, their voices steady even as the air shook with alarms. "We hold the line. We finish this." Across every ship, soldiers prepared for what they knew would be the final push. Then the silence ended. The fleet advanced, weapons blazing. Beams of energy split through the darkness, smashing into human shields. Entire squadrons of drones poured out, swarming like angry insects. Space burned as the aliens threw everything into one last storm. But humanity met the storm head-on. From the moon's hidden fortresses, colossal cannons fired, tearing holes in the enemy lines. From Mars, new waves of human ships emerged, engines roaring. Even from asteroid bases, smaller vessels charged forward, striking the aliens where they were weakest. The humans fought with a fury that turned the tide of battle. One by one, alien ships exploded. A destroyer tried to break through Earth's defenses, only to be ambushed by 3 human frigates. A massive battleship fired its main weapon, but human bombers slipped under its shields and struck its core. The giant vessel cracked apart, its remains scattering like broken glass. Inside the alien flagship, the High Admiral shouted until his voice broke. He demanded victory, demanded obedience, demanded fear. But fear was no longer in the humans. Fear now spread among his own soldiers. The fleet began to falter. Human commanders seized the moment. They ordered a full counterattack. Squadrons of sleek fighters darted between alien cruisers, planting bombs and vanishing before they could be caught. Human battleships pressed forward, hammering the enemy with relentless fire. The sky that once belonged to the fleet now burned with human strength. And then came the final blow. The last alien carrier, the pride of their armada, stood at the center of the formation. It launched fighters in endless waves, trying to hold the line. But the humans focused all their fire on it. Dozens of ships converged, unleashing everything they had: missiles, beams, and cannons. The carrier's shields cracked. Its armor burned. The screams of its crew echoed across the comms. In one final blast, the great vessel exploded, a ball of fire brighter than a sun. Silence followed. The fleet, the same fleet that had ruled the galaxy for centuries, was broken. Its carriers gone, its battleships shattered, its formations collapsing. The few ships that remained tried to flee, but Earth's army cut them down. The once invincible armada was now nothing but wreckage drifting in the void. On Earth, people wept and cheered. Screens across the planet showed the burning ruins of the alien fleet. Families embraced. Soldiers raised their fists. Humanity had done the impossible. Across the galaxy, enslaved worlds heard the news. Whispers spread like wildfire. The fleet is gone. The humans destroyed them. On mining colonies, slaves dropped their tools and cried in disbelief. On hidden worlds, rebels lifted their weapons with new hope. The terror that had ruled for generations was dead. But the greatest change was not in the galaxy. It was in the fleet itself. The alien admiral, once proud and cruel, now sat in silence. His fleet was gone. His power was broken. He could not understand how humans had done it. How could a young race, with no empire and no ancient legacy, destroy the mightiest force the stars had ever known? The answer was simple. Humans had something no weapon could measure: the will to fight, even when defeat seemed certain. They did not fight for glory or conquest. They fought for survival, for family, for freedom. And that was something the fleet could never crush. As the last alien wreck burned in the void, the truth was clear: the galaxy had changed forever. The fleet had fallen. And in its place, a new name rose in whispers, carrying both fear and awe: Earth. The battlefield was silent now. The stars that had burned with fire and explosions were calm again. But silence did not mean peace. It meant something greater: the end of an era. For centuries, the fleet had ruled the galaxy with terror. Wherever their black ships had gone, death followed. Worlds had surrendered without a fight. Entire civilizations had vanished in flames. The galaxy had lived in fear so long that many believed it would never change. But change had come. The fleet was gone. Their carriers, their battleships, their endless armies. Destroyed by a world the galaxy once ignored. Wreckage floated in the void, glowing faintly like dying embers. The invincible had been defeated. And now the galaxy whispered a new name: Earth. On Earth itself, celebrations filled the streets. People cheered, hugged, and cried as the news spread. The fleet that had once threatened to enslave them was nothing more than scattered debris. Humanity had stood together and won. But even in their joy, they understood the truth. The war had changed them. They had not only defended their world, they had revealed themselves to the galaxy. And now everyone was watching. Far away, in hidden corners of space, enslaved peoples whispered prayers of thanks to humanity. For the first time, they believed freedom was possible. Rebellions stirred in secret, inspired by the humans who had defied the strongest power in the stars. But the rulers of the galaxy did not see Earth as hope. They saw it as danger. In council chambers made of glass and gold, leaders of ancient empires gathered. They argued, shouted, and trembled. If the fleet could fall, then no one was safe. And if humans could rise, then who would be next? Earth is a threat, one alien lord hissed. If we do not control them now, they will control us. They are too young, another argued. They should never have had such power. It is unnatural. But beneath their words was something simpler, something they could not admit. They were afraid. Afraid of a world that had no empire, yet defeated the greatest empire of all. Afraid of a people who fought not for conquest but for survival and still won. Afraid of a species that did not bow to fear, but turned it into fire. In the dark corners of the galaxy, whispers grew louder. The humans are dangerous. And those whispers reached even the survivors of the fallen fleet. Broken, beaten, and humiliated, they fled into the shadows. But they carried with them a burning hatred. They swore that one day they would return, not to conquer, but to take revenge. Back on Earth, commanders stood in war rooms, staring at maps of the stars. They knew the truth: the victory was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with powers older and stronger than anything humanity had yet faced. And now Earth had revealed its strength. There would be no hiding anymore. Commander Reyes looked at his officers, his voice steady. The fleet is gone, but others will come. We must be ready. And so humanity began to prepare again. Factories that had worked day and night did not stop. New ships were built, larger and faster. Defenses were strengthened. Soldiers trained harder than ever before. The humans had tasted war among the stars, and they knew it was not finished. Across the galaxy, fear shifted. No longer did people tremble at the name of the fleet. Now, they trembled at the thought of Earth's army. The same whisper that once spoke of despair now carried awe. The humans destroyed them. In marketplaces, in mines, in palaces, and in slums the story spread. Parents told their children about the blue planet that defied death. Leaders warned their people to beware of the rising power of humanity. And rebels raised their banners higher, believing that if Earth could fight, so could they. The galaxy had a new fear now, not the fleet but the humans. And humanity, standing on its small blue world, looked up at the endless night. The stars no longer seemed untouchable. They were waiting, calling, daring. The war was over. But the story was just beginning. Because when the galaxy looked to the sky, it no longer saw the fleet's shadow. It saw Earth's dangerous army. And that army was only getting stronger.